start a new series. It's called License to Serve. And if you saw on the social media, I wrote this week, this is not about recruiting you into our dream team, okay? So don't check out and be like, oh no, they're going to ask me to do something here, you know. That is something that we do, and it's something that you're invited into, but that's not what this is about. This is a moment where we're going to pause, we're going to take stock, we're going to look at our lives, we're going to find what Jesus wants us to be doing right here, right now. My prayer is that God would meet you where you're at this morning and begin a great work in you, take you on the journey to where He wants you to be. So the tagline of this is, so that others may live. So that others may live. So it's about you. It's about God meeting you where you are at. But because He has a purpose, God's purpose for you involves others. It involves whatever sphere of influence you have, whatever He wants you to do, that involves other people. There's people that should be sitting in this room that are not sitting in this room because they don't know Jesus, and that's because we haven't stepped up to the plate and invited them to church. It's not about being the biggest church. It's about allowing people to meet Jesus and go on that journey of becoming more like Him that we're all invited into. So it's License to Serve is about finding purpose. It's an invitation to you to find your God-given purpose so that others may live. When we walk in our purpose, we allow other people to walk in theirs. There's something amazing about seeing somebody walking in their purpose, right? When you see somebody, you think they were just designed to do this thing. I don't know, maybe for you it's architecture or a painting or whatever. When you look at something like that, you go, wow, this person that did this was just made for this. That's what this is about. It's about finding what you were made for and then walking in that. And then as you walk in that, other people will go, wow, look at that person. They were made for this. And then it creates the space for others to come and join us. I've been reading the Psalms in the TPT, and it's very poetic, beautiful translation to read, paraphrase to read. And the one Psalm I was reading said, for God will lean over the balcony of heaven. So my prayer for this series, I borrowed those words, is for God to lean over the balcony of heaven and whisper, I've got more for your life. That's my prayer, that God would lean over the balconies of heaven this morning and whisper into your heart, I've got more for your life. I've got more for your life. So I don't know if you watch Bear Grylls, I don't, but I know that he does, some of our youth, people here are whispering. I know that he does this thing where you choose your own adventure. So you can go and watch and you can say, should he eat the potentially poisonous mushroom, or should he try and catch a fish with his bare hands so he doesn't starve to death? And then you pick one, and then the story follows that route. So this morning we're going to do, you choose your own preach title, okay? So I'm going to give you both options. You apply whichever preach title you like, and then we're going to go on the journey. So preach title number 1 is, Your Life Matters. Your life matters. So some people have got that one, they're going on that journey. For other people, now you can say this one in different tones. For other people it is, what are you doing with your life? Or what are you doing with your life? I don't know, apply it however you like. But what are you doing with your life? Your life matters. What are you doing with your life? One of my favorite quotes of all time, and I'm pretty sure I've already shared it in this church, but that doesn't matter, is, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? What I love about this is it doesn't say, what is it you plan to do with your dull and boring and mundane life? It says, what is it you plan to do with your wild and precious life? Life is precious. Life is supposed to be precious. It's sacred. It's beautiful. And what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do when you have that revelation that this is it? This is my life. I get to live this for God's glory the best I can, not white-knuckling it, not just holding on for all time until eternity when heaven comes and I can chill. That is not what we are called to do. Let's not be people that white knuckle grip and hold on tight till the end. Let us be people that say, this life is wild. Okay, it is wild. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. It is wild. Are we going to wake up with electricity or not? I don't know. It's wild out here. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to choose to just white knuckle it, or are we going to choose to actually live, to step into the space of wild craziness, and let God fill us with purpose and with gifting, and let us spend it as best we can on the people around us? Now, when we get to heaven, we deserve the rest that comes when we get there. Although I don't think we're just going to sit around doing nothing, but that's, maybe a message for another day. So I have 4 points for you today. I have an invitation, there's a blessing, there's a command, and there's a calling. So let me start by reading the Bible. That will probably help, hey? I'm reading from John 15, verse 9, starting at verse 9. As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. So if you chose your life matters, maybe you chose it because you don't believe that your life matters. This scripture is all you need to hear for the rest of the day, but please keep listening. As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. No matter who you are sitting in this room, God loves you. He's crazy about you. So remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you these things so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. Who's in for complete joy? Anybody? Yeah, sounds good to me. This is my command. Love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants anymore, because a servant doesn't know what his master is doing. I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything I have heard from my Father. You didn't choose me, but I chose you. I appointed you to go and produce fruit, so that your fruit should remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you. This is what I command you. Love one another. Love one another. Simple, hey? Easy. We can all just do that and go home. Life will be wonderful. My first point is that God gives us an invitation. We're invited into God's story. He calls us by name. He invites us. He's whispering to us today, come be part of what I'm doing here on earth. Come be part of this incredible love story. There is no greater love story on earth than the Bible. It's not a list of commands. It's not a list of rules. It's a love story from beginning to end on every single page. And we are invited into that love story. In verse 9 it says, as my Father has loved me, I have loved you. Remain in my love. So our invitation is there to be loved. God loves us whether we choose to lean into that or not. He still loves you. That fact is not going to be removed. But his invitation to us is to remain in his love. To remain means to stay in the same place or in the same condition. We cannot move out of something that we remain in. I was thinking of an anchor. So an anchor that sinks to the ocean floor, that ship can't go anywhere. And your life can toss us and turn in the waves of life, and storms can come, but that ship doesn't go anywhere because it's anchored. That's what this is. We need to be people that anchor ourselves, that stick our roots down in God's love. Not because it's a rule that we have to follow, but because that is where we find everything. That is where we find peace and joy. That is where we find purpose. That is where we find calling. That is where we find our identity. Everything is found in that place where we remain in God's love. So his invitation to you today is to remain in his love. If you don't do anything else for the rest of time, just remain in God's love. Because when you find yourself there in God's love, all other things will flow out of that in a much more graceful, easier way. I'm not saying you're going to have an easy life, because as I mentioned, the storms of life come. But when the storms come, they're so much easier to manage because we're anchored, we're rooted there in God's love. So the Bible's not a whole bunch of disconnected stories. The Bible tells us one story, and that story is that God so loved the world that he chose you, and he made a way for you to come into his love. He made a way for you to find love and to walk in freedom and with purpose. That is what the Bible is about, from beginning to end. And right there towards the end, it speaks of how it's all going to be wrapped up one day, and eternity is beautiful and wonderful. Right now, we're living somewhere just before that's going to happen. Who knows how long that's going to be. But our invitation is to remain in God's love, his unchanging and amazing, incredible love for us. The second thing that I saw there is that there's a blessing. So before we've had to do anything, right? It's not like go and make disciples or, do this thing or do that thing. It's remain in my love, and then there's this blessing. And John 15:11 says, I've told you these things so that my joy may be in you, and your joy may be complete. Complete joy. Complete joy. Imagine living a life of complete joy. And how do we get that blessing? By remaining in God's love. When we remain in God's love, we find complete joy. Elsewhere in Scripture, it says, in God's presence is the fullness of joy. The fullness of joy is found in God's presence. When we remain in God's love, we have this blessing of joy. I love, many years ago, I heard a message preached about how we're blessed to be a blessing. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever been around somebody that just is fullness of joy, that is just always joyful. And when you're with that person, you think, wow, this is awesome. I just want to hang out more with this person because they're always joyful. Are you always joyful, my love? Yeah. It's not wrong. He is joyful. He's not wrong. So when we find ourselves rooted and anchored in God's presence, and in his love, we find ourselves being able to be joyful. There's a lady that does my hair, because this doesn't come naturally, apparently. When I go to her salon, there is joy. She is the picture of joy to me. She loves what she's doing. She is rooted in God's love. She loves Jesus. That's what we talk about most of the time in her salon. And she just is full of joy, full of life. When I go there, I'm excited because I'm going to get my hair done. But I'm also excited because I just get to hang out with her. Because she's just joyful. And the last time I had my hair done, she was having a bad morning, and so was I having a bad morning. So even though we came together in like a little bit shattered by our mornings, she shed a little tear, but she was still joyful. In her rough start to the morning, she was still joyful. There was joy throughout. And when I leave her salon, I always just feel so happy that I was able to share in this joy that she has. And she's a person that is rooted in God's love and that she's walking according to his calling. There was some people in her salon once when I was there, and they started to talk as women do sometimes. And she turned and she said, "We won't talk like that in my salon." And that, to me, is an incredible testimony of what we can do when we are completely found in the love of Jesus, that we are so full of joy and so full of purpose that we're able to say, no, not like that. We're not going to be those people in this place. When we are joyful out of that place of knowing who God is, knowing how much he loves us, and walking in our purpose, it's contagious. People want to be with you when you are filled with joy. People want to hang out. People want to say, I want more of that. I want to be like that person. We have enough sour, grumpy people in the world. Us Christians don't have to be like that. We can be full of joy because we know that Jesus is love and he's crazy about us and he has called us according to his purposes. So all these things that are going on, sure, some of them suck, but we can be full of joy because we know that there's a plan and a purpose, and one day all of this is going to be wrapped up for eternity, and we will be forever in His presence. Let us be joyful people so that others may live. Some people don't want to be Christians because they don't like Christians. It's not that they don't like Jesus, it's that they don't like Christians. Let us not be Christians that people don't want to hang out with. Let us be Christians that are full of love and joy so that others may live. That's what this series is about. Us becoming the best version of us so that others may become the best version of them, and so that we can all love Jesus and love each other. We are blessed to be a blessing. So as you are full with joy, would you bless others by being joyful? Let us be a joyful people. That's what I say when I sing. I make a joyful noise to the Lord. The speaker didn't apparently think so, but I maintain that I make a joyful noise to the Lord. Then there's a command. So what I want you to notice, if you're going, oh no, the Bible always is a list of rule books, is first there's love. Then there's joy. Then there's a command. And the command is not an easy one, okay? I'm not saying that this is easy. Verse 12 to 13 says, this is my command, love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down his life for his friends. So that's what Jesus did. He came, he loved, and he laid down his life. So this is not saying that we must die for our friends. This is saying that Jesus lived the exemplary life. He came to serve, not to be served. He didn't come on this throne swanning about that everybody must fan his feet or whatever. He came to serve. And that's what he's calling us to do. Out of that place of being found in his love, of being filled up with joy, he's calling us to be people that lay down our lives in service of others. That means that we make space for others to thrive. We do things above and beyond, full of joy, full of love for Jesus, love for each other, that makes space for people to come into the fullness of who they were created to be. It's not always easy to love people. Some people are hard to love. Really. Some people can be hard to love. I get that. But we got to fill ourselves, we've got to find ourselves full in God's presence so that we can go out and love others. There was a time when I was incredibly hard to love, I think, sometimes more than maybe I'd like to admit. But we moved from Cape Town to Centurion. We got plugged into a church and a life group, and so we were new to Gauteng. We didn't know many people. I think I knew 2 people. And we found this life group. Now, the people that led that life group, Peter and Jenny Bremner, many of you know them. They've since moved to Cape Town. How weird. But they chose to love us. They just loved us. They just blessed us. Their home was always open to us. And there was a point where I had to tell Jenny that I was pregnant. Now, that should normally be an exciting thing to tell your friend, but I had to tell her I was pregnant, though she'd been trying to fall pregnant for 5 years. And so I think in that moment I wasn't easy to love. Not that she was angry that I was pregnant, but it hurt to now serve somebody when they have everything you ever wanted. Everything she ever wanted, that was her, she wanted so desperately to have a baby, and I was having a baby. She could have walked away from our friendship. She really could have. Because honestly, we'd only just got there. It was fun. She could have sent us off to another life group and just sat in a corner or something. But she chose to lean in. She chose to serve me in a beautiful way in that season. She hosted me a baby shower. She asked me about all the milestones, all the checkups. After James was born, she was the first person in the hospital room to come and visit and to meet my baby. And then I did it to her again. I had another baby. And she chose to love me. So 2 babies in 2 years, and twice she leant in and loved me. She hosted me 2 baby showers. I wasn't easy to love, but she leaned in and she served and she loved me in a way that was extravagant and beautiful. That's who God calls us to be. God calls us to be those people that lean in and love, even when it's hard to love. Even when it hurts, we get to serve other people because it shows people what Jesus is like. It shows people who Jesus is when we choose to go, not my will, not my way, not me hiding in a corner somewhere because this is painful. I'm going to choose to show up. I'm going to choose to serve because that's what Jesus would do. And I believe that I have a greater love for Jesus and his church because of Peter and Jenny Bremner. Their legacy is completely involved in this church because of how they loved us when we moved here. It's a beautiful story of what Jesus is like. I found this quote this week by the Bible Project. It says, acts of generosity are the hallmarks of Jesus' followers. Acts of generosity, that's generosity of self, not just sometimes it's easy just to give money, but actually acts of generosity of self. Acts of generosity are the hallmark of Jesus' followers. This will show the world who Jesus is and therefore who God is. When we are found in God's love, when we are filled up with joy, we get to serve other people, and that shows them what Jesus is like. That's our mandate. That's our calling. That's what Jesus is asking us to do. That's why this morning he's going, your life matters. I have purpose for you. What are you doing with your life? It matters how you live. The last thing is a calling. God is always calling us. He's calling us first back to him, but then he's calling us to live a life that calls others to him. He always is calling us. Verse 16 says, you did not choose me, but I chose you. I believe there's people here that need to hear that you are chosen by God. You are chosen. You might think that you walked in here by accident because you saw a sign or you saw an Instagram post or whatever. God chose you. He chose you and he's called you and he's inviting you into a story that is beyond wild. Ask me, I know. I did not plan on living the lifestyle I'm living, did not plan on standing in front of a room full of people to speak, but God chose me. God chose you for a purpose. You did not choose me, but I chose you. I appointed you to go and produce fruit, that your fruit should remain, so that whatever you ask in my name, he will give you. So the Bible talks about producing fruit, and maybe that makes no sense to you, but actually what it's saying is I've chosen you for purpose. Producing fruit is purpose. A tree is planted and grown for fruit. If you don't plant an apple tree, for shade, they don't get that big. But it's planted for apples. God has chosen you, and he plants you within community, and he fills you with kindness, and he calls you into purpose because he wants you to produce fruit. There's something he wants you to achieve. What are you doing with your life? There's something he wants you to achieve. If you are still here, if you are still alive, if there's still breath in your lungs, whether you are a newborn baby or whether you are in your 90s, if you are still with us, God still wants you to produce fruit. He still has a plan for your life. He still has a calling for your life. I planted a lemon tree about 10 years ago, let's say, because somebody gave me a word and said, plant a tree and watch it grow, because I felt like my life wasn't bearing any fruit. Plant a tree and watch it grow, and you'll see as it grows, God will encourage you. You'll see yourself growing. So I planted a lemon tree, which apparently is one of the slowest growing trees. Well, that was my fault. I should have done my research better. But I planted a lemon tree, and then we moved house. I never saw the lemon tree bear fruit. But then Stephen and Jess moved into that house last year, and last winter, Stephen bought me a lemon off that tree. And that tree bore fruit. And I didn't know, I may never have seen that lemon, but it gave me such courage because it felt like God whispered to me, you see, your life matters. Your life matters. What are you doing with it? Can you see I'm doing something? Can you see I'm up to something in your life? Maybe you don't see, but there's one lemon hanging on a tree in a garden, and that's a promise that I made, that you are going to grow and you are going to bear fruit when you lean in to God's love. When you step into His calling, you will bear fruit. You will grow. So my encouragement to you today is that you have been chosen by God. You have been called by name to bear much fruit. Your life matters. Your life matters to God, and your life matters to people around you. Your life matters to people in this church. When we first started going to church many years ago, and a pastor stood up and said, I love you guys. I was like, probably that guy, maybe that guy, but not this guy. That pastor's never even met me. Like, why would he say that? Like, that's bizarre. How can he say that he loves me? So these kind of darts, I would duck them. Like, no, they're not talking to me. Can't possibly be talking to me. But when I was preparing this, I thought, I got it. I've got it. You might be here for the very first time. I am crazy in love with you. I think you're awesome. I really, genuinely, honestly do. I may never have met you, but I know that because God loves you, because He has chosen you, because He has called you, I love you because I know that you are so full to the brim of possibility and potential, and God is going to use you in amazing ways, and you just don't even know it yet. But we in this church, Gareth and I, we love you. We love this church. We cannot wait to see your life matter for something. We can't wait to see you step into the fullness of your potential, because we know that you are full to the brim with possibility by a God that's crazy about you. Filled to the brim with possibility. Your life matters. So what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do with your life? So my prayer at the end, as we wrap it up, Psalm 90 verse 12 says, help us to remember that our days are numbered. One day, all of this will be wrapped up. One day we will go and be with Jesus. And help us to interpret our lives correctly. Set wisdom deep in our hearts so that we may accept your correction. I felt very strongly when I was preparing this that there's people that are going to make bad decisions, the wrong decisions. Won't you stand? Maybe get some blood flowing. Feel like people are going to make the wrong decisions. Maybe you feel like your life doesn't matter, so you're going to end it. This is a moment where God is saying, stop and listen. Heaven is roaring over your life because your life matters. It matters to God, and it matters to me. Some of you, I think, are planning on running away. I don't know what that means. Running away from a marriage, running away from your family, running away overseas because of fear. Don't run because of fear. Go because of faith, but don't run because of fear. I believe God is going to call people in this room to build businesses that matter, to start a business that creates opportunity for people, that change the trajectory of people's lives. Don't run in fear, stay in faith. Don't run in fear, but stay in faith. Your life matters. What are you going to do with it? Wisdom's correction, God's correction, we accept this morning.